ألف لام را تلك آيات الكتاب المبين إنا أنزلناه قرآنا عربيا لعلكم تعقلون. Assalamu alaikum. Welcome to the Madinah Arabic short tutorial series. Today we'll start lesson 11 from book 1. So this is going to be part 1 of lesson 11. In this lesson, we'll get introduced to a new concept in fi'liya sentences. We already know what fa'il is in fi'liya sentences, right? It is a doer of the action. For example, in جلس بلال في الفصل, جلس is fi'l, and the مرفوع اسم بلال is the fa'il, or the doer of the action. So the important rule we should keep in mind about fa'il is that it is marfu'. Now we are going to learn about a new part of fi'liya sentences called MAF'UL BIH, written as مفعول به. مفعول به is a person or a thing that is affected by the action. In other words, it is a person or a thing that is acted upon. So it is an ism type word. An important rule about مفعول به that we should be aware of is that it comes as mansub in a sentence. Not all fi'liya sentences come with مفعول به. The three verbs that we already know, which are ذهب, خرج, and جلس, didn't require مفعول به. So we didn't have to talk about it up to now. But there are a lot of verbs in Arabic that need مفعول به to convey a complete meaning. Here's the new verb سأل, which means he asked. The verb سأل can take مفعول به, as in this جملة فعلية. سأل المدير المدرسة. The principal asked the teacher. سأل المدير المدرسة. Here سأل is the فعل. And what do you think its fa'il is? Who is doing the action? Or who's the one asking? It is the مرفوع اسم المدير, right? What about the مفعول به? Who is taking the action? Who is being asked? The مفعول به is the اسم منسوب المدرسة. So as we can see here, the اسم المدير is مرفوع with ضم ending because it is functioning as the fa'il. And المدرسة is منسوب with فتحة ending because it is مفعول به. Note that in Arabic, the fa'il doesn't always have to come immediately after the verb. We can switch the places of the fa'il and the مفعول به and still convey the same meaning by saying سأل المدرس المدير. The principal asked the teacher. سأل المدرس المدير. Here سأل is the فعل. المدرسة is still مفعول به because it is coming as منسوب, and المدير is still the fa'il because it is مرفوع. Both the fa'il and مفعول به should come after the fi'l in fi'liya sentences, but their relative position with respect to each other does not play an important role for them to be the fa'il or مفعول به. What is important is their case. مرفوع اسم is the fa'il and منسوب اسم is the مفعول به of the fi'liya sentence. So if we really want to switch the functions of these two ism المدير and المدرس and say the teacher asked the principal, instead we should say سأل المدرس المديرة. You see, المدرس now became مرفوع because it is functioning as the fa'il, the doer. And المديرة is mansub because it is coming as مفعول به. Let's see a few more examples for مفعول به. We will now use a new verb, شرب, which means he drank. شرب. شرب حامد الماء. Hamid drank the water. شرب حامد الماء. Here, شرب is the فعل. حامد is فاعل, because he is the one drinking the water. That is why حامد is مرفوع. And the منسوب اسم الماء is مفعول به. الماء is what is taking the action. If I want to say, I drank the coffee, what should I start my فعلية sentence with? I should start with the proper form of the فعل, right? I drank in Arabic is شربت. And the coffee will be القهوة. So together, شربت القهوة. In this فعلية sentence, شربت contains both the فعل and the فاعل. The فاعل is ضميرت. And the منسوب اسم القهوة is what? It is مفعول به. That is why it is منسوب with فتحة ending. Let's take another new verb, قرأ, which means he read. How would you translate this sentence using the rules we just learned? قرأ الطالب الكتاب. We should translate it as the student read the book. Here, قرأ is the فعل, and the مرفوع اسم الطالب is the فاعل, and the منسوب اسم الكتابة is مفعول به. Another example sentence with قرأ is أقرأت القرآن اليوم? Did you read the Quran today? قرأت contains both the فعل and فاعل. The فاعل is ضمير تا, which is مرفوع اسم. And القرآن is the مفعول به, and it is منصوب اسم. اليوم is ظرف, which as we know is also منصوب اسم. In lesson 11, Dr. Abdul Rahim introduced a new verb in present tense to practice using مفعول به, and it is أحب, which means I love. It is a verb for first person singular in present tense. We will not talk much about the present tense verbs in Book 1. We will learn a lot more about them in Books 2 and 3 inshallah. For now, it is enough for us to know that أحب means I love and learn how to use it in sentences. The verb أحب comes with مفعول به. Here's an example. أحب الله والرسول صلى الله عليه وسلم. I love Allah and the Messenger, peace be upon him. Here, أحب means I love. The ism Allah is مفعول به, that is why it is coming as mansub. Wa is حرف عطف. The next ism الرسول is معطوف, or connected to the ism Allah. That is why it is also mansub, because معطوف matches the case of the ism that it is connected to. Let's see a few more examples for مفعول به coming with the verb أحب in exercise 2 of lesson 1 on page 62. The first sentence is أحب أبي وأمي. I love my father and my mother. Here again, أحب means I love. أبي is actually an إضافة combination of the mansub ism أبا and ضمير متصل يا. أبا here is the mansub case of the ism أبو, the father. When it is combined with ya, the ضمير متصل ya pulls down the fatha ending of أبا and it becomes أبي. So the mansub sign of the ism Abu is not apparent in Abi. But we know that مضاف أبا of the إضافة أبي is mansub because it is مفعول به. Ummi is another إضافة combination of أمة plus ضمير يا. أمة is mansub case of أمو. And again, ضمير يا pulls down the fatha of أمة to be kasrah. So originally, أمي has become أمي. The mansub sign of the ism ummu is not apparent here. But we know mudaf of ummi, which is ummah, is mansub because it is ma'atuf to aba. Second sentence is very similar to what we just saw. أحب أخي وأختي. I love my brother and my sister. أخي is the إضافة combination of mudaf أخا and ضمير يا, coming as mudaf إليه. And the mansub ism أخا is مفعول به. أختي is إضافة of أخت plus يا, and أخت is معطوف to أخا. Both are mansub even though their sign of being mansub is not apparent in أخي and أختي. Third and fourth sentences are also very similar. أحب زميلي. I love my colleague. زميلي is an إضافة of زميلة plus ضمير يا. زميلة is mansub because it is مفعول به. This ضمير يا, by the way, is typically called ياء المتكلم, written as ياء المتكلم, meaning the ya of the speaker, or ya of the first person. Let's try to get used to calling it ياء المتكلم from now on, okay? Sentence 4. أحب أستاذي. I love my teacher. أستاذي is the إضافة of أستاذة and ياء المتكلم. And the mansub ism أستاذة is the مفعول به of the فعل أحب. Sentence 5. أحب الله. I love Allah. Here we can see the apparent mansub sign of the ism Allah with the fatha end. Sentence 6. أحب النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم. I love the Prophet, peace be upon him. Again here the ism an-nabiyya is coming as mansub because it is maf'ul bih. The marfu' form would be an-nabiyyu. And the final sentence. أحب اللغة العربية. I love the Arabic language. Can you find the maf'ul bih in this sentence? It is al-lughata, right? Al-arabiyyata is not for al-lughata. That is why al-arabiyyata is also mansub and ma'rifah similar to al-lughata. We are done with this exercise. Now I'll bring in another form of the verb أحب, which is تحب. تحب means you love. Using this form, I can ask you questions such as أتحب الله? Do you love Allah? To which you say نعم أحب الله. Yes, I love Allah. Let me ask you a few questions like this to see if you can answer them in a similar way. أتحب الرسول صلى الله عليه وسلم? What would be your answer? نعم أحب الرسول صلى الله عليه وسلم. أتحب اللغة العربية? You can say نعم أحب اللغة العربية. أتحب أمك? Notice here I'm using أمك, not أمك. Unlike ياء المتكلم, the ضمير متصل ك doesn't change the end of أمة. So أمة plus ك remains as أمك. We know that أمك is the إضافة combination where أمة is مضاف and ضمير ك is مضاف إليه. And here the مضاف أمة is coming as منصوب with فتحة ending because it is مفعول به. How do you answer this question? أتحب أمك? You should say نعم أحب أمي. Yes, I love my mother. And the last question. أتحب لغتك? How do you say yes, I love my language? You should say نعم أحب لغتي. This should be good enough practice with مفعول به. I should inform you that we are not going to see a lot of مفعول به in Book 1 because Book 1 focuses primarily on ismiya sentences. But we will start seeing a lot of مفعول به from Book 2 onward when we talk deeper about جملة فعلية because مفعول به plays an important role in constructing فعلية sentences. Now try to understand the مفعول به as much as you can in this lesson, but if you do not yet fully understand it, do not worry. We will inshallah talk a lot more about it when we get to Book 2. Until the next episode, Assalamu alaikum.